Shalom to my brothers and sisters in the struggle here in America, aka Babylon. All praise to the Most High Yahweh, and His Son the one and only Messiah. Well, I hate to toot my own horn, but I tried to warn people a month ago to start looking out for mass shootings. And if I am not mistaken, there has been several dozens of senseless shootings since I gave out that warning. No, I do not feel special. I just know these wicked satanists use your lack of knowledge to understand how they do things to further their agendas. And I told you after the bedwench coon herself Sheila Jackson Lee presented the gun control bill to Congress January 4th after the Democrats won the election, there will be a major rise in mass shootings to help push the gun control agenda. But I never would have thought they would attach racism to their argument to make sure these gun law bills pass. They are about to use this filibuster argument to prevent the Republicans from stopping them. They have been spewing lies saying the filibuster is racist. The filibuster is far from racist. Do not get me wrong, in history racist senators have used the filibuster to try and prevent certain legislations to be passed, but the filibuster itself is not rooted in racism. If you believe what your fake media tells you, then my advice is to push stop on this video and move on, but the filibuster is not about racism. Racist senators like Strom Thurmond and others used it to prevent bills like the Civil Rights Bill and the anti-lynching law to pass, which both bills passed. And the thing they are purposely not telling you, is that when Strom Thurmond used the filibuster to try to block any civil rights bill, he was a Democrat, not a Republican senator in 1964. Strom Thurmond switched to the Republican Party after 1964. So what does that tell you? It was Strom Thurmond and other Democrats that was going against the civil rights bills being presented to the Senate in the 50s and 60s. Yes, they use witchcraft with their words, and depend on the people lack of knowing their history. These wicked Democrats are about to play the race card and play on black people's emotions to convince them to get rid of the filibuster. The Democrats can pass all the legislations their dear old hearts desire without any resistance if there is no filibuster.
The video we are about to show you comes with this footnote. Mitch McConnell is not an historian.
You argue the filibuster is not rooted in racism. Historians differ on this. Are you concerned about the perception? If it is used against advancing voting rights, certainly the public perception is that Republicans are going to use this tool to make it harder for black people to vote.
Yeah, actually, historians do not agree. It has no racial history at all. None. So there's no dispute among historians about that.
Back with us, former Senator Claire McCaskill and Eugene Robinson. And Eugene, no racial history at all. The filibuster record, 24 hours and 18 minutes on the Senate floor, set by segregationist Senator Strom Thurmond to try to stop and failing to stop the Civil Rights Act of 1957. And we could go on and on.
We could, yes. The ghost of Strom Thurmond is laughing at that absurd misreading of history. So, of course, it does have a racist history. Look, Claire may have a different view, having served in the Senate, but I'm no fan of the filibuster, and especially now that the Senate is just a small, less efficient version of the House, where everybody votes along party lines, and nobody. The minority doesn't try to meet the majority halfway. So I would be perfectly content if Democrats just got rid of it. At the minimum, they need to modify the filibuster rules and make them talk and make the minority produce 41 votes on the floor to hold up legislation or something like that. But something's got to happen. This is a ridiculous situation.
Let me get this straight. Senator Edward Markey of Massachusetts, who is a Democrat, just a few years ago suggested that the Democrats use the filibuster on one of Donald Trump's Supreme Court nominees in 2017. And you people are not seeing this as a game. Let us listen to a pro-gun control advocate in Canada, who even want the law-abiding citizens to not have firearms to protect themselves. The Democrats here in America are pushing the same philosophy this black crow is about to spew from her beak.
Dr. Ahmed, people who are on your side of the argument, who want to see tougher legislation, say that this bill is a betrayal. In fact, one of the most vocal advocates for this is a woman named Suzanne LaPlante Edward. Now, you might be familiar with her name, our audience might be familiar with her name, because she is very vocal on these issues because her daughter was killed in the 1989 gun attack at Ecole Polytechnique, one of 14 women who was killed on that horrible day in this country. And in a statement that she released as a result of Bill C-21, she said that this is a betrayal. And she said of the Liberal government, they lied to us, they lied to Canadians. So clearly for her and for many others, this proposed legislation just completely lacks teeth. It doesn't make people any safer. And we've heard from other experts saying it just sort of pushes forward the laws that already exist. There's no meaningful change here. What's your reaction to that?
I would say there are some meaningful changes, and I can understand, people who feel this legislation does not go far enough. We ourselves would like to see much stronger legislation that would decrease the proliferation and the presence of these terrible and very powerful semi-automatic rifles. We also advocated for that, and we would like to see a national strategy on semi-automatic handguns. We would like to see a strategy that would decrease their presence in our homes and communities for sure. Certainly, we will continue to work with the government to bring these things to bear, because it's very clear the majority of Canadians want this. The majority of Canadians want stronger gun legislation that will make our homes and communities safer, that will remove the semi-automatic rifles that were prohibited in the Orders of Council of May 2020. That is our desire and wish as well. And a national strategy rather than a patchwork would be more desirable from the perspective of many Canadians.
And Dr. Ahmed, there's also the other side of the argument, folks who don't necessarily advocate widespread gun ownership, but do own guns themselves, and they say, well, all this legislation is going to do is penalize people who are law-abiding, who are not part of the problem. It's illegal guns that are the vast majority of problems. And then there's also the issue of gun advocates who say that a replica gun ban will hurt businesses like paintball and airsoft facilities. So it would hurt people financially, it hurts people on a philosophical level. What's your argument to them?
Well, we do know, the world literature shows very clearly that the more guns there are in society, the more gun violence there is. And these legal guns, legally owned guns, can be stolen and sold into illegal markets and then used in crime guns. We also know that about a third to a half of guns that are used in crime were originally legally purchased and then somehow made their way into these crime scenes. So it's not entirely genuine to say that it's all about illegal guns. We know the more guns there are in our homes and communities, the more at-risk people are. We know the majority of suicides are committed with legal guns. We know the majority of domestic homicides are committed with legal guns as well. And these are societal issues that we have to address.
Okay.
And you think your government here in America is not trying to do the same thing? This wicked woman subliminally just said, it is okay that criminals, the police, and Canada's army to basically have guns, but not legal citizens. This is getting really ridiculous, people. Scenario: I am a non-felon black man without a gun because the government says, no, they're dangerous, you can't have one. Well, my house is about to be robbed by an intruder with a gun. I call the police, then I realize, the police is out here killing black people also. Meaning, without a firearm to protect myself, I'm screwed. There are many more scenarios I can come up with to show you it would be horrific if civilians were not in the possession of firearms. Let us see what is happening in Southeast Asia, a country called Burma. Right now over in Burma, wait, I'm sorry, the country is now called Myanmar. Well, the ruling military changed the country's name from Burma to Myanmar in 1989. Because civilians were not allowed to possess firearms, it was very easy for the civilians to be overtaken. The new rulers of the country changed the country's name from Burma to Myanmar. Recently the same thing happened, They were overruled by tyrants, and all the civilians are having to fight with rocks and sticks right now. Yesterday, 100 protesters dead.
Turning to news overseas and an increasingly dire and violent situation in the country of Myanmar in Southeast Asia. A truly staggering number, more than 100 killed today alone in protests against the military coup there. And a warning, some of this video is disturbing. Molly Hunter has details.
In more than 40 cities across Myanmar, security forces gunning down unarmed civilians running for their lives, violently dragging protesters away, beating people up. Security forces are caught on camera shooting 3 men at point-blank range as they drive by. According to the Associated Press and local reports, more than 100 people were killed, making it the deadliest day since February's military coup. NBC News cannot independently verify that number.
We have only one scenario. First, the military must stop killing its own people, attacking its own people.
These scenes happening at the same time as Myanmar's military junta celebrated what they call the Armed Forces Day with a parade through the capital. The U.S. Embassy says shots were also fired at an American center. And tonight, the U.S. ambassador condemning the violence. This bloodshed is horrifying. These are not the actions of a professional military or police force. The U.S. and U.K. are both ratcheting up sanctions against 2 military-owned conglomerates. But so far, international pressure hasn't stopped the killing. Molly Hunter, NBC News, London.
I thought I would show you what it looks like when people in a country have no rights to bear arms to defend themselves from their government or military. It would be a total defeat for the civilians of any country that cannot bear arms to defend themselves. And that is very close to happening in America if the civilians here do not start paying attention on what is happening in Washington, D.C. The Democrats could pass any laws they present with only 51 votes, and your 51st vote would be Mrs. Kamala Harris. So if you are a Black, Hispanic or Native Indian, you should be worried about the possible governing power the Democrats could have without that filibuster in place. They can reform Joe Biden's 1994 crime bill to make it more easier to lock up Israelites. Statistics shows that the 1994 crime bill Joe Biden advised starting in the late 70s, in which Bill Clinton signed into law, it shows that it worked like a charm. Passing that law in 94 and having all the circuit court judges on board, made it very easy to succeed. So these Democrats are in front of the television and social media scheming up ideals to manipulate the sheeple to root for their causes, while behind closed doors they are planning the destruction of a whole lot of Blacks, Hispanics and Native Indians. And you gun lovers, Joe Biden will not show any signs of old age and acting senile when he gets that pen in his hands to sign away your Second Amendment rights. He is for sure coming after your guns as soon as possible. Well, only if you continue to stay in the matrix. So scratch your heads, wonder why your popular Black social media is not talking about this possible devastating ordeal that can easily destroy Black people in so many areas. Black people without guns, it will finally be over for us. Research, and stay focused. Shalom.